Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture, and we're on to the second year-end list, one I'm excited about, the top 10 best hit songs of 2017. So as I said in my last list, I haven't considered 2017 nearly as bad of a year as some critics have, especially when it comes to a lot of the hits. Yeah, there was a lot of stupid, misinformed, or outright offensive garbage that clogged up the charts, we just talked about it, and I can see if you weren't willing to dig beyond the top 10, you might be dispirited in some of the dreary trap slog. But the truth is that the songs that did break away from that sound or mold, or hell, even a few songs within it, they were true gems across multiple genres. Yeah, country, it struggled in the mainstream this year. It happens, they're working on it. But there was real greatness in pop, hip-hop, EDM, R&B, and even some rock-leaning songs. I wouldn't quite say the overall quality or the sheer number of hits is quite comparable to say 2015 or 2012, but yeah, it is up there. And what surprised me in a great way was the truly amazing hits of this year were strong enough to maybe even have a chance to reach my year-end list of my favorite songs of 2017. That top 50, not just the hits. And you know, for as many obscure or weird albums as I cover and then love, this is still a great thrilling feeling that somehow quality does win out and rise to mainstream prominence for everybody to share. And that's good for culture everywhere. And yeah, I know, some of these picks might be a little controversial, especially in my honorable mentions, but as always, they had to debut on the year-end Hot 100 for 2017, and I did manage to find some real quality there. So, let's start off with my honorable mentions, particularly one, if you saw my worst hits last year, might shock you a little bit.
Oh, I've been shaking, I love it when you go crazy. You take all my inhibitions. Baby, there's nothing holding me back. You take me places that tear up my reputation. Manipulate my decisions. Baby, there's nothing holding me back.
Alright, look, Treat You Better is still one of the most reprehensible songs to ever been released this decade to become a hit, but I was saying back in 2015 that Shawn Mendes had real potential, and while this is not his best, it is a step back in the right direction. It nearly beat out Miley Cyrus's Malibu for this list, and while that song grew on me a lot this year, it also doesn't really evolve in a satisfying way and pay itself off. I ended up a little bit too lukewarm on it as a whole, but there's nothing holding me back. It feels like the propulsive, long-delayed apology for Illuminate being garbage that I was very welcome to receive. Yeah, I might not be crazy about the stuttered guitar melody that opens up the song, but what the track has in its favor was momentum and sharper electric chords that give into this galloping hook. And in comparison with how sterile so much of Shawn Mendes' material is, I appreciate it when he's getting yanked out of his depth and comfort zone into rougher territory that, yeah, it could compromise him. It adds a sense of danger and stakes to the song. Even if I get the feeling that for Shawn Mendes, the most these manipulations might lead to are actually going to a dive bar or, hey, you know, listening to an actual rock song. But hey, baby steps, he's still young, and at least he's finally going back in the right direction.
Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks. I've been feeling it since 1966. Might be over now, but I feel it still.
So I was all set for this song to land in my top 10 proper, and yeah, it kind of cooled on me. Don't get me wrong, it's cool to see an indie mainstay like Portugal the Man do as well as they did, and that deeper snapping bass groove bouncing off the squonk of the horns in remarkably complex guitar melody was genuinely great. The sort of 60s throwback that might not really have the bite of the protest songs of that era, but does capture a lot of the groove, and I like that. But I was never really quite won over by John Gorley's falsetto, and the more that I read into the lyrics, the more I got the feeling that it's more of a protest because it's trendy and profitable tune than anything with actual fire in its belly, and that's kind of hard to get over. And yeah, when Todd in the Shadows juxtaposed this with the infamous Pepsi ad, that didn't help. Thanks, Todd. I don't know. For as great as the groove and the musicianship is of the song, it's certainly welcome on the Hot 100. I wish I could put this higher on my list. And it wasn't like the rest of Woodstock wasn't a letdown either.
I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. And last night you were in my room. And now my bedsheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. Well, I'm in love with your body.
Oh, I know I'm gonna get hate for this, and while the troll in me is looking forward to all the scandalized reactions in the comments, I genuinely think critics trashing the song have been consistently missing the mark for Ed Sheeran. Oh god, I can't take Ed Sheeran making a sex song seriously. Look at how he fills the song with so many mundane details. It's just not romantic at all. Duh, that's the point, dude. This is very much not a romantic song with the sort of details and mundanity and framing how disposable this relationship all is. And it plays into the rough edge, kind of sleazier side of Ed Sheeran that informed tracks like Don't and Bloodstream, and to a lesser extent Galway Girl, which is far more textured and interesting for him as a songwriter than the saccharine dullness of Thinking Out Loud or Perfect. Oh, I'm sorry, it sounds like a Rihanna ripoff. Well, yeah, because if you look at tracks like Desperado and Loyalty, that's a solid lane for Rihanna too in the past few years. And really, I would take Ed Sheeran writing for Rihanna with the brittle strums, the minor keys and nervy energy, and a ridiculously tight hook that leaned to a post-chorus that actually has surprising depth of tone in comparison to whatever Sia does with Cheap Thrills. Yes, this song was overplayed, and yeah, it is kind of shallow. There are many other songs that I think deserve to head their #1 spot in 2017. But as a song, it knows that it's shallow, and it does it well. I'll take it.
What y'all trying to do? 24 karat magic in the air. Head to toe, so clear. Look out! Pop.
And speaking of complete shallowness, here we have Bruno Mars mashing together early 80s R&B and mid-2000s hip-hop with glorious indulgence. And while I personally probably would have preferred Versace on the Floor become the retro power ballad that absolutely ruled the entire 2017, I like this regardless. It's a really good song. I like how Bruno Mars oozes raw charisma and his shamelessness. Like with Uptown Funk, the lyrics are cocky and goofy as hell. Only he could get away with shouting #blessed or dissing the bad bitches and the ugly ass friends in a song like this, and I'm not even sure if he does get away with it. And that's the trick of this song. It's borderline a joke because nobody buys that he's a dangerous man, and he's got all the depth of a Vegas showman. But like the best Vegas showman, Bruno Mars is gonna pull you along for the ride on a Technicolor track that revels in a lot of its artificiality. It's a great pop song with the heavy usage of vocoders, flashy synths, and the hype men bouncing around him for every ad-lib. Yeah, it's retro cheese, but with this much personality in a year in desaturated trap, it's the best sort of escapism.
I get those goosebumps every time. I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around, when you throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah.
So this year I saw Travis Scott in concert, and look, for somebody who didn't actually mind Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight more than a lot of critics did, this was a highlight, with Travis Scott playing off the murky, atonal, echoing guitar tones to cultivate a weird sort of hypnotic vibe. And yeah, on some level it's just another vapid party banger, but you dig a little bit deeper and you know how much this girl bucks against Travis Scott's expectations for not quite being hedonistic in the same lane as he is, something that throws him into unfamiliar territory off his game. All the more emphasized when an uncredited Kendrick Lamar shows up and drops a verse of pure braggadocious flair, enticing this girl into that swirling murk. It's the sort of verse that shows out of nowhere and only makes the song better, with strikingly sharp bars to balance out the ego and go beyond just flimsy seduction. There are a couple great lines there. A lot of this song is capturing that unstable, slightly unnerving mood of potentially finding a connection and then tilting into that. And the fact they made one hell of a trap banger out of it, that's a credit to them both. I dig this.
Do you slide on all your nights like this? Do you try on all your nights like this?
I might.
Put some spotlight on the slide. Whatever comes too clear.
So in 2017, Calvin Harris and Migos decided mutually to start making good music. And really, that's good for all of us, especially if we're gonna give Frank Ocean the biggest hit of his career along with it, even though I would make the argument that Frank Ocean is the least interesting part of this song. But yeah, for as much as Goosebumps was intoxicating and dark, Slide is pure glossy retro disco, courtesy of those Migos flows that go so well against it, I'm a little bit stunned they don't do it more. The sharp bounce of the bass playing off the echoing claps, the glossy sharp shards of synth, the subtle touches of melancholy as Frank Ocean knows that there really isn't all that much of a connection being formed with this person he's meeting up with. But you know what? He's gonna slide with it regardless, and let's see what he gets anyways. And well, nobody's expecting depth out of Migos. They play that carefree, upbeat vibe really well, and Offset's flow and verse and flexing here is perfectly timed. Again, I'm not saying this isn't a little vapid. That along with the shrill opening keeps songs like this and Goosebumps off the list proper, but man alive, this was so much fun.
What if I lean in and the stars line up and it's our last first kiss? What if one of these days, baby, I go and change your name? What if I loved all these what ifs away?
I feel like I might owe an apology to somebody for putting this on my list, but I can't. I'm sorry. This was a damn good song from the very beginning that I tried desperately to deny, and yet with every single listen throughout this year, it got even better. Yeah, it's a choppy pop country song with a cheap backbeat and an acoustic line cribbed from High Valley, and doesn't nearly use Lauren or Alaina as much as she really deserves. And yeah, it's also much of a vapid bro country hookup jam, and yet I can't get around how well that hook works. Delivered with the sort of conviction which Kane Brown's baritone can actually somewhat sell, and I like how so much of the song is flying in the face of expectations, all again, taking all the negative second guessing that might happen in the hookup and flipping it to a positive, which works even better when played as a big duet where both people are asking the same questions, and Lauren Alaina actually seems pretty receptive. She wants Kane Brown to kiss her, which knocks it above your average bro country hookup jam. And again, this subgenre can have quality. Okay, look. At the end of the day, for as much of the shady nonsense I've heard about Kane Brown's promotion outside the industry, and how I really can't recommend his album, at least there's something of a neo-traditionalist there in spirit. Because you don't fill your bridge with this much pedal steel otherwise, and when you factor in real passion and firepower from both artists, yeah, for me, it gets there. So yeah, that's with the list proper. Let's start off with number 10. So when I picked up my number 1 top hit of 2016, it came at a weird moment for me. I caught the melancholy that I was really feeling at the end of the time coming out of an awful year. There's a deeply held moment of wistful sadness that resonated at just the right frequency, and I genuinely loved that song. This song, well, not so much, but the fact that a good 2 years after the album dropped, this still has a lot of staying power for me, that says a lot.
If you're gonna let me down gently. Don't pretend that you don't want me. Our love ain't water under the bridge. If you're gonna let me down gently. Don't pretend that you don't want me. Our love ain't water under the bridge.
At this point, Adele has gotten so good at breakup songs that you almost expect a track like this, especially if it's a hit, to play in that territory. But what I appreciate is how Water Under the Bridge completely upends that, because this is a love song. Yeah, that kind of threw me off too. I was expecting with the primary metaphors that this was the moment before the inevitable separation, with Adele just asking to make it go down easy if it's not gonna work. But what throws her is that it actually is working, getting more serious in a way that you can tell has put her off balance more than him. The caution is certainly justified coming from Adele, but the revelation is just as euphoric. But when you factor in the gentle gallop of the guitar line that builds to that heavier percussion bombast of the hook that really works for her, and with the bridge building off the hand clap a little bit more as the vocal layering swells, it's a potent climax, and the emotional bait and switch manages to connect for me. Again, not a better song than Hello or When We Were Young, but the fact that Adele did this so well with no promotion and no video, yeah, says a lot. Great tune. Number 9. Honestly, this doesn't need an introduction. I'm just gonna let it play.
Hey, I remember syrup sandwiches and crime allowances. Finesse a nigga with some counterfeits, but now I'm counting this. Parmesan where my accountant lives. In fact, I'm down in this. You say with my boobay tastes like Kool-Aid for the analyst.
So remember how I said I saw Travis Scott this year? He was actually opening up for Kendrick Lamar, and watching the entire arena scream back every single word of this song, bar for bar, line for line, back at Kendrick was unlike anything I had ever seen at a mainstream hip-hop show. And yet the funny thing is that this was just so much of a heel turn for Kendrick Lamar as Look What You Made Me Do was for Taylor Swift. This was the moment that when confronted with an increasingly uncaring audience and a media holding up distorted mirrors of who Kendrick really was, he succumbed to his own rage and vanity to become everything that they projected down upon him while still holding on to something of himself. So we get a blocky trap beat from Mike Will Made It, playing off harsh piano chords off the revving guitar, and Kendrick Lamar proving that he can play his own distorted shadow just as well as his true self, even as he realized that his hook look is just as self-flagellating as it is commanding. He's directing most of it at himself. Yeah, there was controversy surrounding the Photoshop line and how just one projection of male beauty is just replacing another, and a few forced rhymes I didn't really like, and a slightly less fiery delivery that keep this from being higher on the list. But if Kendrick's first #1, it only gets better in the context of the album and features some of the most stark, hard-hitting but accessible multi-syllabic bars, which even more mainstream hip-hop would never even try. And frankly, with the praise that this song and Damn got, you all know it, but more on that a little bit later. Number 8. You know, The Weeknd should have had a much better 2017 than he did. While Starboy was an amazing song that lasted into this year, was a major hit, not making the list, made the list last year, it didn't seem like he knew how to follow that up properly. I mean, as much as I love False Alarm for the dark wave smash that it deserved to be, it was never going to be a hit. But Reminder and Party Monster underperformed and missed the cut here. And Secrets and Rockin', they were never good enough to be hits to begin with. Bizarre choices considering that Sidewalks had Kendrick Lamar on it. That could have been a bona fide crossover smash, and arguably 6 Feet Under could have done even better with Future. In short, I can make the argument that The Weeknd kind of mishandled his 2017, with one exception. You know, at some point, The Weeknd just needs to cut a mixtape or an EP with Daft Punk, because between their worship of retro R&B and how well their melodic balance works against these tight rhythms, they are a natural fit for each other. And yeah, this track has already been dismissed by some, especially critics, as the most blatant Michael Jackson pastiche The Weeknd has ever done. It's true, but it's not like this brand of R&B is getting real traction anymore, and that's a damn shame because it's a terrific song. A beautifully solid melodic foundation in the muted keys off the razor-sharp groove, the subtle touches of multi-tracking complemented with Daft Punk's remarkably emotive robotic vocals that I have always loved, and the sheer sense of joy The Weeknd brings is infectious. Again, this is a love song to that same dead-eyed girl that shows up in all of The Weeknd's music, but you get the feeling the message and the feeling behind the song is kind of touching him as well, exposing him to the possibility of that genuine connection and love that's something that he has avoided for years because he thought he didn't deserve it. I like the brighter feeling of euphoria, the dawn breaking on the oppressive night that has lingered over Abel for so long. There's catharsis there, and if it has to embrace a shameless double entendre to do it, so be it. This is a criminally underrated song. So happy that this was a real hit. Number 7. You know, I haven't talked much about memes in these lists, mostly because mimetic culture falls into a weird spot on the internet, not really my cup of tea as a whole, and more often than not, it's been responsible for pushing disposable music that's been more about the meme than about a lot of the songs itself, and that kind of bugs me on some level. There was, of course, one big exception, and when combined with its feature in a little horror movie that turned into a cult phenomenon that was the highest grossing film based on an original screenplay ever, we got this. The fact that there is a Childish Gambino song on the year-end Hot 100 in the top quarter of the list with no music video, absolutely mind-blowing. And it's indicative of the best hits of 2017 sounding so little like anything else on the Hot 100. Like with The Weeknd, Childish Gambino might embrace tones from the past, as well as high-pitched vocal delivery that, yeah, took a lot to grow on me properly, but it executes a lot of that late 70s feel flawlessly, playing off the rich funk of the bass line with the sparse twinkles around the plucky yet lingering electric guitar and the muted electric piano. It's subtly eerie with the spikes of synth bass, but oddly hypnotic. Kind of enticing. No surprise that Jordan Peele decided to include it in Get Out, and it was a great choice to begin with. And that's not even getting into the content, which to Donald Glover's credit is more ambiguous but potent however it's interpreted. On the surface, it might seem like a warning given in the inevitable breakup that she might have cheated and isn't quite as invested in the relationship that he's willing to put the time into, but the haunted vibe in the title of the song Redbone, to say nothing of the inclusion of the phrase stay woke, implies something much more unsettling, that a light-skinned black woman might find herself a target, or getting exploited by all the world around her in that society, especially if she finds herself looking to embrace elements of a culture that might then fetishize her, be they white or Be They Black. And while Childish Gambino probably wasn't planning on a song like this becoming a meme in this way, in the vein of other mimetic, internet-driven tunes like, say, Chocolate Rain, it slid a fascinating portrait of complex racial politics right in under everybody's nose. And you know what? When it sounds this good, how could I pass it up? Number 6. So a lot of critics who covered this list, they often talk about the fluke indie hit. I'm often one of them. But honestly, I think it's a term that should be retired, especially coming into this year. In the era of commercials driving more indie rock to popularity, the burgeoning SoundCloud rap scene, and the prevalence of industry plants, especially in indie rock, is a term that feels more and more flimsy to me. But among those oddities that landed on this list, there was one that seemed just idiosyncratic enough to make this list. It overcame its terminal flaws and perpetual awkwardness to resonate even if it wasn't quite independent, and here it is.
That I'm at an all-time
You know, I stand by the fact that Jon Bellion's debut, The Human Condition, is an unbelievably uneven album. A factor that with every repeated listen stands out all the more. The bad songs just get worse, but the good songs get better. Now, thankfully, this is among the better category, even though I wouldn't put it in the same level as 80s films, or Morning in America, or Fashion, or He Is the Same, or especially Hand of God on that outro, and yet, I can see why some people would consider this just as flawed. It's a misshapen, weird sort of song. The pitch-shifted nonsense that spewed over the organ line, the overweight knock of the beat, the odd belching as the song kicks into the chorus, repeating one word into shrill incoherence, the fact that anybody wants to hear about Jon Bellion masturbating, giving us all the reason in the world why he got dumped here. But of course, just like 21 Pilots ahead of him, puncturing his useless pride is the point of the song, and all those misshapen elements kind of work. It's a stern wake-up call to get the hell over yourself at the pits of his self-pity, and Jon Bellion knows that, which leads to the bridge and the best part of the song, where he runs out of breath midway through repeating the hook and just makes that sort of unforced sigh that places his humanity in plain view, and lets you then empathize with the hook coming back all the stronger. It's adolescent, sure, it's the tiniest little bit of a moment, it's twee, but in a way it's kind of tolerable, and it's by far one of the stranger hits you'll hear on the Hot 100 this decade. But in a year where a lot of folks hit rock bottom, I get the pathos. I feel it too, and I love this song. Number 5. Now granted, if you're looking for a song that addresses the rock bottom directly, in a way that confounded all expectations and serves to become one of the most critically beloved mainstream pop rock songs of the year, if not more.
Just stop your crying, it's a sign of the times. We gotta get away from here. We gotta get away from here.
Okay, look, I'm as annoyed as anybody that Niall Horan's This Town didn't make the year-end Hot 100 for 2017. It's a damn great song, and the charts really did deserve to have it. But even with that, Sign of the Times, it was the song that proved to so many people that post One Direction, these guys had something to offer, and it's arguably the better song. And Harry Styles did it in the best way possible. Harry Styles has always been really charismatic, but cutting loose on what could have been a classic rock ballad 40 years ago lets him open up his range on a huge song that offered no easy answers, taking a bleak, borderline apocryphal situation and hurling it back into the stratosphere. Now, as a classic rock fan, it's not on the level of David Bowie or Freddie Mercury. It takes a little bit too long to get going, doesn't quite have the edge or the true roaring guitar solo that it needed to really connect for me, doesn't quite cut as deeply, feel as raw as it should. But if I'm comparing a single in 2017 to rock legends that charted, something is going right here. And Harry Styles playing off the wailing rock guitars as the song builds layers of cacophonous swell is a phenomenal fit for him, especially in taking the steely-eyed, thousand-mile stare, someone who has seen it all come and come again, and now preparing to do it all again. It's a sort of startling, titanic hit that sets sky-high expectations for Harry Styles going forward. And while I think on that self-titled debut, I don't quite think he got there, I am thrilled to see whatever comes next, because it's a landmark. Number 4. And here's a song that I've been predicting will make my list for months now. And I get the impression people will still be surprised that it's here, especially considering it won't likely make many, if any, other list. But yeah, definitely deserved it.
Walk you through the dark side of the morning. Who's gonna rock you when the sun won't let you sleep? Who's waking up to drive you home when you're drunk and all alone? Who's gonna walk you through the dark side of the morning?
This, more more than ever represents exactly the reason why Kygo is head and shoulders above so many of his other peers in mainstream electronic music and EDM. A phenomenal grasp of melody and willingness to embrace organic guitars to play off the shimmering synths, the bouncy tropical snap, and the sandy vocal syncopation. All paired with Selena Gomez at her most distant and dismissive with a monster of a pre-chorus and a hook. It plays to her strengths for once. And while I would love to think this is a song directed at Justin Bieber for everything that he's done, it's a monumentally satisfying track to come after any breakup, capturing whiskey in a high rise and a giant middle finger to the lack of class and courtesy that her ex showed. It's not even so much angry as it fills with weary and burned out, just charging forward, but with a desire just to move the hell on and get things over with, reflecting a level of maturity to which Selena Gomez is surprisingly convincing. So let's not mince words. It's Selena Gomez's best song since Naturally. It finally laid the groundwork for Kygo to have mainstream crossover success, and that hook, one of the best of the year. It's got a shot at my other year-end list. I like it that much. Number 3. There was a part of me that didn't quite believe that this was being pushed as a single. I mean, the artist was on top of the world. He had his big #1 single. It was the biggest song of this year. But they wouldn't let him push something like this against the deluge of trap and desaturated pop. Something that might actually rock?
Country late, singing to Tiny Dancer, and I miss the way you make me feel. It's real. We watch the sunset over the castle lonely.
I'm not gonna deny that there's a part of me that wishes that all of Ed Sheeran's music was in this vein. Something where the drums are pounding and the shimmering electric guitar surges and the entire song feels like a late 80s U2 song. And the fact that Ed Sheeran doesn't embrace his inner rock star, it's always gonna drive me crazy. But that's not where the money is. I get it. But my god, this is the sort of song we just don't get on the Hot 100 anymore. You don't understand. The love letter to his old friends in rural Suffolk that captures the wistful promise and his own failures in his youth, but also isn't afraid to show where those friends are now without a shred of judgment. He knows the people who shaped him in the years past and all the mistakes he made, that references a hardscrabble youth and feels actually believable and not self-serving. And really, Ed Sheeran is the star of this track. The sort of heartfelt rock tune soul with the raw sincerity that has far more power than any overdone ballad he's ever put out. I know that some of my love for the tune is the fact that deep down, this sort of rock song just short circuits my critical faculties, but even beyond that, it's one of the best damn songs that Ed Sheeran has ever written, and if we have to get an avalanche of treacly romantic gunk in order to get more songs like this, god damn it, I'll take it. Number 2. Okay, if you only pay attention to the Hot 100, you might not realize that there are songs that shouldn't become hits. Not like Ed Sheeran. That sort of song was a hit in the past, but there are songs that are not crafted or designed to be hits. If they cross over, they're a novelty, or they seem like they're from an entirely different universe of actual quality. They only get traction because of a meme or a joke or a passing fad. Or in this case, given success by a man whose fame is starting to defy words, and he got this to chart.
I got loyalty, got royalty inside my DNA. Cocaine quarter piece, got war and peace inside my DNA. I got power, poison, pain, and joy inside my DNA. I got hustle, though, ambition, flow inside my DNA.
Okay, it should be no surprise I love DNA. It's the furious slice of Kendrick Lamar that shreds every target in his path with ruthless efficiency, while still highlighting the deep sins within himself that he still hasn't quite reconciled. It's a killer opening song, but all you need to understand this, there's no hook. He switches up his flow in double time against the echoing darkness of the melody off of the thrumming beat and the trap side, even as the melody contorts into a verse, switching into an entirely different song. And then Kendrick goes even harder and more rough. He has a contorted sample of a Fox News correspondent as a stunning rebuke of their asinine criticisms of All Right. 3 minutes, non-stop bars. You don't understand how rarely, if ever, this happens on the Hot 100. Even in the golden age of hip-hop, or the gangster rap boom of the 90s, these songs did not cross over. Yeah, the trap sound might be close to what's popular in the mainstream, at least until the beat switch throws all that out the window. But if you're a hip-hop head, you don't dare to dream a song like this actually makes a hit. It's the same feeling I got whenever I listened to The Blacker the Berry from To Pimp a Butterfly. You can't expect the mainstream to ever get on board with a song like this. It's too dark, it's too edge bitchy, it's too aggressive, too borderline political, too good. And yet, by some miracle of streaming and the fact that Kendrick Lamar made a genuinely terrific video and has reached the A-list of modern music, as he rightly should, DNA lasted long enough to become the bars fest that no other mainstream artist in hip-hop came close to touching this year. And for a while, easily my number one, because there wasn't a chance in hell there'd be something so monumental, so powerful in culture, in my own personal psyche that could override this. Right? Number one. So I don't consider the cultural impact of the songs that I place upon this list. It's my list. I choose the tracks that resonate the most for me of the 100 that notched their spot on this year-end countdown. I don't care about their ubiquity or the memes they spawn. At the end of the day, the music has to stand for itself. It's gotta click for me. But I'm not gonna deny. In a year that could feel pretty damn bleak both on the Hot 100 and off of it, there was one song by an artist that I never dreamed to see popularity again that hit that sweet spot, and you all know who she is.
I hope you're somewhere praying, praying. I hope your soul is changing, changing. I hope you find your peace, falling on your knees.
Yeah, I know, it's predictable. You all saw it coming. I don't care. I'm not in the business of surprising or trolling my audience when I don't need to, and when the quality is this potent and worthy of recognition. I have been on board with Kesha since at least 2011. I have made multiple special comments on her lawsuit with Dr. Luke that was heartbreaking. I don't deny being a fan of her, but even as a critic, this was not my favorite track off of Rainbow, which was one of the best damn records of 2017. But again, I wouldn't say it's better than Warrior either. And yet, while I will not claim a song like this was the sole factor that blew apart the cultural floodgates on sexual harassment allegations that drove so many powerful men out of power, rightly so, like Same Love Before It in 2013, it's hard not to see that cultural resonance, and that counts for something. Because while Praying takes a while to get going, isn't quite as rough, scrabble, and lean as Kesha is at her best, it was the stunning artistic rebuke that she earned for the world. The producer that used and abused her, that she expects to go straight to hell. The media that derided her. The popular and critical consensus that for years treated her like a punchline. The pain is plainly real and organic, the story personal in its context but universal in its truth. And while not a moment of forgiveness, it is a decisive finale that closed the door on a nightmarish saga that has kept Kesha from the spotlight for far too long. And coupled with the slow, dramatic production from Ryan Lewis that brings in a heavenly elegance while allowing Kesha's raw edge to really cut through and deliver a vocal performance that is devoid of autotune to prove us she never really needed it, including hitting a whistle tone note that was so few and modern pop would even dare attempt. It was sublime. I love the build from the piano and organ to the blast of horns, heraldry for a new beginning, that defied all the expectations and finally brought her the critical acclaim that she has deserved for so long. In other words, folks, Kesha's Praying, the best hit song of 2017, and Kesha, I'm so happy to have you back. But until next time, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.
You're gonna get what you get.